But for panel 2, we're moving on from the RFS case to now having a look at operational challenges in crises. And it's my absolute pleasure to introduce our panel of very knowledgeable speakers, and just so grateful to them for talking to us about these operational challenges. So we have Sari Baird from Oxfam, Robin Erskine from Baird, Natalie Silver from the University of Sydney, and David Murphy from Jackson McDonald. I won't go through their full bios because they're on the Clan's website, giving you more information about our wonderful speakers. But in the interest of time and in a similar format to the first panel, if you post any questions that you have to the chat area, I will collate those and then pose those to the speakers at the end. Otherwise, I'll say no more. Sari, I'll hand over to you to present to us.
Hello there all, and I can't activate my video, so I hope you'll just allow me to speak with a blank page. Okay, sorry, thanks Amy. So thanks very much. My opportunity today is to respond to the theme of organisational responses to crisis, and I hope in doing so that I'm able to provide some context for the next speaker's talks. And just to share with you insights into 2 operational approaches that have helped me as an in-house lawyer in a charity manage legal change in a time of crisis and a time of great uncertainty. Like Melissa and Tara, I don't pretend to be able to offer lots of answers in this talk, but just to provide some context. So similar to the approach that they took, I do want to remind you of the lovely autumnal weather that we were experiencing in Melbourne at the time of the coronavirus state of emergency declarations in Victoria. At that time, Oxfam was busy preparing for international meetings. We had a comedy gala on the books. We were preparing for our Trail Walker fundraising event in Melbourne, where 2,000 people walk to raise funds to tackle poverty. We were also hearing from colleagues in parts of Asia, Europe, and the USA about the impact of coronavirus on their families, on their operations, and people in the countries where we are working. So the first insight I'd like to share is the importance for a legal advisor and the legal team, and I'm sharing this with some of the in-house counsel who I recognise are on the call today, of a simple, usable crisis management plan. It certainly is the lawyer's friend in the in-house context because in a state of high emotion and rapid decision making, lots can be missed, and that can certainly create a very unwelcome sense of anxiety in legal professionals. With the existence of a crisis management plan, I would also commend to the lawyers and legal advisors to the 2 charities the importance of scenario planning, and because of the timing of the way the coronavirus pandemic unfolded globally, you could say that we in Australia had a bit of a head start and were able to learn from some of the operational impacts of our colleagues abroad. Nonetheless, the rate of acceleration and the amplification of the crisis is certainly unprecedented. So what should be on the legal team's duty card in the crisis management plan? So I'd share a number of those instances with you today. The first thing involves you, the legal profession, who know us, advisors to the sector. I would be in touch, my first recommendation is I would be in touch with the lawyers who are advisors and other key advisors to the charity to alert them of a time of impending need. Your knowledge about the way charities work, about our regulatory parameters, about the expectations of the community and our purposes are absolutely vital when we are working under pressure quickly to provide advice into the operations of the organisation and to the people that we serve. So it's so important to be able to feel confident in preparing a duty card that you have a list of the lawyer or the other advisors that you might need help from to be able to activate the plan at a time of immense pressure. Regulators are also on the list, and I think that pretty well covers the audience today. The key contact in the organisation, whether it is the lawyer or another that is making contact with the regulators, should also have a really clear understanding of what the regulator will want to know, so that that message can be conveyed quickly and effectively and updates can be provided. Insurers are other important stakeholders in the activation of a crisis management plan. As I mentioned, we had a number of events that we were set to run, and I can't emphasise more the importance of knowing what your insurance policy is, having a copy of the indemnities, the exclusions, the exceptions, the fine print, and everything else that is hyperlinked into a contract. I think I'll skip over the broader group of stakeholders because I think that was really well covered in Melissa and Tara's comment. The supporters, the volunteers, our staff are absolutely important in the inner circle. And perhaps just go mainly to grants and contract holders with charities. As you'd expect, a large charity like Oxfam has numbers of suppliers, and we also work with numbers of partners with our network overseas. We're funded by the Australian government for our humanitarian and our development work, and also members of the philanthropic community. So being able to communicate with contract holders, having a spreadsheet of key contract notification obligations, force majeure clauses, obligations to notify in the event of the potential to suspend or vary, or worst case scenario, cease the delivery of services, is very important for a legal advisor in a charity to be able to give guidance to our colleagues and some certainty to the people we work with. You know, at the same time as all of this is happening, for an organisation like Oxfam, we also had the unfolding of other events. Tropical Cyclone Harold hit the Pacific in early April. We know that there were earlier, prior to that, floods in Timor-Leste that actually flooded our office. So another aspect of the crisis management plan needs to be the clear delineation of a group that will manage the crisis and the group that will continue to deliver the business as usual humanitarian relief. In terms of governance, the role of the board and being able to keep the board appraised and informed with clear and transparent information is vital. And again, it's important to engage our external advisors in that process. So I'm very pleased that we have speakers on the panel today who are going to be able to talk more about the governance and bigger picture thinking that boards might be engaged in during a crisis. Finally, I think I should touch on the importance of wellbeing for lawyers working in crisis management teams. And I don't know if Tara and Melissa spoke to this, but it's clear that fatigue is an issue in crisis management itself, and this goes to the role of the lawyers as well, especially if you're responding on a 24/7 cycle with international stakeholders. It's so important to have access into knowledgeable legal advisors in the legal community like yourselves, to be able to sub out the in-house counsel from time to time and to apportion that load. And I want to thank the advisors here at the conference today who helped us through that process, and me and the legal team in particular. The second aspect of this context setting for you, I think, is what is the role of purpose, and how does that impact decision making from a legal perspective in a crisis context? It's a very highly emotive context when you're watching a charity, when as a charity worker you're watching a crisis unfold. It's really heartbreaking to see the impact of the crisis on vulnerable communities and beneficiaries, especially when we spend most of our time dedicated to relief of suffering and not being an observer. So enacting any organisational change that might be required because of the crisis and its impact on financials or events or activities and programs, the role of the lawyer has to be carried out in a way that not only sees the legalities being done correctly, and that's a given, but also to reflect on how the way these changes to our obligations are implemented, how these changes are actioned. Are we as an organisation able to mirror the values, our feminist principles, transparency and inclusion when implementing industrial or other changes in an organisation, much of which occurs at significant pace during a crisis? And in that respect, I think holding our purpose and having clear sight of it and understanding that we can't really disconnect from that purpose and the communities in need. When facing challenging decisions about delivering services, we have to also hold that in balance, not only a resilient and sustainable organisation to deliver the framework, but the purpose for which that organisation exists. And I'll finish here. For me, that's certainly the North Star in my thinking around the decisions that we make on legal changes. Thank you.